Welcome everyone, I'm Maury Weinstein, president and co-founder of System Source. Today we're talking about proactive steps required for cyber insurance claims to be paid in full and to minimize premiums. I've left my phone number there on the screen right in front of you, and that number is good day or night. If you ever feel you're sliding backwards, something doesn't feel right, or there's something I need to know, don't hesitate to reach me. We hope you're enjoying your pizza. If you haven't received your pizza, please check your front door or receptionist. Sometimes it's the same person, and or contact Julie Dellinger at jdellinger@syssource.com. Thanks, Julie, for setting up today's event. During the webinar, you'll be in presentation mode, and don't hesitate to view the webinar in full screen mode. There's plenty of data on the screen, and it will be difficult without full screen mode. In chat or the question box, you're welcome to tell us what you hope to learn today or any questions you have. If you've listed some questions when you registered, I have those in front of me also. There'll be an evaluation just after the webinar finishes, and that's helpful for us to improve for next time. Thanks for joining us today. I thought I'd go to commercial for about 20 seconds, and then we'll get right into the meat of the presentation. Customers come to us to help them mature IT and audiovisual operations. To do so, we use our learning center, which trains for hopefully higher productivity and more end user satisfaction. We have a presentation systems group that just creates conference rooms and auditoriums and classrooms, and has been doing so for several decades. Consulting is where we keep our heavy hitters. These folks do our cloud migrations, all of our security assessments. Cloud services is code word for our data center. We've been running a data center in our Hunt Valley headquarters since 1995. So we took our cloud blinders off many years ago. Today, much of our current work is being done at AWS and Azure. Service and support can be done two different directions. One is proactively, that's our managed services operations. And we manage about 2,600 workstations and servers on a minute-by-minute basis. Service and support can be also done reactively. We do have some group of customers that call us when it sort of all falls apart. If we maintain efficiently enough, there may be enough money left over in the budget for purchasing new equipment and refreshing the environment, and that's the role of our configuration center and warehouse here in our Hunt Valley headquarters. If any of you haven't joined us for our computer museum tour, we have a large computer museum. It's probably the second largest on the East Coast, and there's over 1,000 items open for display, including our Apple One. Don't hesitate to join us, especially fun during the holidays with family, and don't hesitate to hit the System Source Museum webpage for registration. This particular webinar is really part of a much longer series of IT management webinars and seminars. There you see the one up top, which is where we are today. Let me change my color over. But there's plenty of others, including security lessons learned from Verizon's analysis of 22,000 security incidents, learning from our 167,000 completed IT support tickets. There's plenty of other ones. Don't hesitate to keep an eye on our webpage or your email for further invitations. The agenda today is for understanding your security exposure, how insurance firms rate your exposure, finding your security comfort level, including at home, and who's going to do all this work. So let's jump right in. Our internal and client security posture is currently at yellow alert. We started at red. I think the first step in approaching a difficult issue like security is to write down where we are and be honest about it. We're very sensitive here at System Source to messages, management messages to the staff. And for you to have a single sentence message as to where you are in your security posture, I think would be very beneficial. Based on my 44 years in IT management, I think that IT security risk could be cut in half instantly if every IT manager or CXO asked for only 4 numbers and checked IT services vendor performance once a quarter. Here are the 4 numbers, and this is really off the top of my head. There's nothing scientific about this. You'll see plenty of data today that's way more scientific than this. But percentage patches installed, percentage using 2FA, phish prone percentage, and backup completion percentage will give you a snapshot as to whether you're a hard target or a soft target. We don't all have to be hard targets, but we can't be soft targets for security. So that's just a very big picture and a theory behind today's presentation, why it may be worth the hour to focus on security and insurance. Is this is seemingly a boil down of the dashboard that you'll see in a moment. The first thought on our agenda is understanding your security exposure. Very broadly, your security exposure is defined as overall risk, less what you insure for, less what you mitigate or reduce your risks. That's really the formula. I thought that would be a helpful starting point. So the starting point for all of us in our organizations is to formally list those security risks and a plan for each one of them. So those security risks should fall into one of three categories. One is risks you're going to insure for, two is risks you're going to assume, and three is risks you're going to remediate, mitigate, or reduce. So make sure that your security risks that you formally list fall into one of the three buckets. I worry a lot about security risks that were never placed in a bucket. That means you're unsure at where that risk should sit. Those are really the worst risks. Those are generally known as unknown risks. Although we know them, they just haven't been recognized by the organization. So think about putting your security risks in one of three buckets and making sure that if your organization is going to assume the risk, make sure that at a very high level that is agreed to, perhaps at the board level. The next step is to help select cyber insurance terms. We'll take a look at those in a moment, and the coverage dollars. And we'll talk more about that also. Then prepping security metrics for at least maintaining your insurance requirements. Those are the requirements that you attest to during the cyber insurance application, making sure at least those stay in place, if not well beyond that. Do note that some people rely heavily on insuring for the risk. Nothing wrong with that. The insurance company, they're a bunch of bright people. They'll either take your money or charge you more or whatever they do. But just know that if there is a claim, the renewals have been expensive with higher deductibles, higher premiums, lower coverage limits, sometimes all three. So relying on insurance to insure for the risks in a substantial way, meaning you're not assuming any risk or you're not reducing or remediating or mitigating risk, is a scary proposition, because after that claim, renewals might be overly expensive where you can't continue your business strategy of insuring for the risk because the premiums will be so high. We have seen that before among our non-managed clients. In understanding the policies to insure for risks, remember that's one of three viable options, although perhaps not viable at 100% level for reasons we just talked about. You really have to know the policy provisions. So reading through those policies, I find them fairly close to English. You know, sometimes you see clauses that you can't explain. I did see one in our own renewal as we renewed our cyber insurance in September. In this particular case, Lloyd's of London, which is one of the leading insurers, especially overseas, is excluding liability for losses arising from any state-backed cyber attack. So you got to watch that one. I mean, that's real. You would love to be insured against this rather than it being exception to the policy. So to understand that, I just wanted you to see a real life paragraph and know that these phrasing is not particularly difficult to handle, although you may not like the result. I talked about a dashboard a moment ago. This is a little piece of a 66-line dashboard that we use in our managed services operations, and each of our clients gets a dashboard. And this happens to be one of two dashboards. This is the security quick glance. So at a quick glance, we can see, and each client can see where they stand against best practices, either red, yellow, or green. Our clients start fairly red, fairly yellow, and wander into the green area. There's also an infrastructure quick glance, which is outside today's scope of our presentation, but we have a lot of clients who are nearly totally green on the infrastructure side. None of our clients are totally green on the security side, but getting closer. To understand where you are, especially against 66 or more attributes, something you couldn't possibly keep in your head. And there is a board version also. Remember, we talked about making sure that any risks that are assumed meaning that they're red or yellow, should be well known inside the organization, especially at the management or board level. And this particular dashboard is capable of doing that. I've made those presentations to the board myself. There is some good news in today's presentation, and that is the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, which is part of a different webinar, has documented that the median ransomware payment is down from 150 to 115K. You can see that right here. And there's actually a reason for that. Those of you with economics backgrounds and supply and have a respect for supply and demand, about half in 2022 of organizations paid the ransomware, did not pay the ransomware. In 23, 54% did not pay. In 2024, they found 64% did not pay the ransom. So you can see the trend there in not paying the ransom. And guess what? The median ransom has come down from 150 to 115. Of course, that's just one piece of the loss. And there's plenty of curve here. There's plenty of organizations paying in the millions. So just because the median's down doesn't mean that you're not going to get an expensive claim. Let's take a look at agenda item number 2, how insurance firms rate your exposure. I picked up on Reddit or someplace a nice compilation of the process because somebody was an underwriter and was writing down how cyber insurance is quoted, primarily by historical data. That's probably not a big surprise to you. They look at the data. They have 3 primary sources if you want to know how they're rating you. First is the application underwriting process. Those are the forms that you fill out. So be very careful and understand what every word means there, even if it requires a conversation with the underwriter through your insurance agent. I've done that before, especially in the early days of cyber insurance where the insurance firms didn't really understand the risks. Now they understand it very clearly. Number 2 is the claims loss data. We talked a moment ago about renewals after a claim is paid can get very expensive with lower coverage limits too. And the third is external vulnerability scans. We'll take a closer look at this in a moment. So the insurance companies generally do external vulnerability scans and might even give you the results. They're very cheap and easy to do, so it's not tough for the insurance companies. But those are the 3 primary sources of the data that the insurance companies use to write your policy. All of you are probably familiar now with the underwriting information. This is just a reprint of the traveler's form. Some of it doesn't make a ton of sense. That's why you may have to talk to the underwriters and get some clarification. Then there's the attestation form, which usually talks about multi-factor authentication and making sure that you have that in place. We use Schoenfeld Insurance for our work for many years, decades. Judy Morrison is the head of Schoenfeld. Sometimes she even joins me on these presentations. But I did debrief her recently on what the must-haves are, the more favorable results, that is what you should need to have to get favorable insurance coverage, and also what she lists as aspirational controls, which are nice to haves. But here are the must-haves in front of us, 1 through 7. We'll cover each one today briefly and understand what's behind it: incident response plans, MFA, EDR, external vulnerability scans, and so on. Then Judy lists the more favorable results. These are the ones that provide more favorable insurance company or lower premiums. I use my presenter discretion today to include patch management in today's deck, although it is not listed under the must-haves from the underwriters that she deals with. So we'll cover these 7 most closely. We'll cover patch management because of just based on knowledge of the industry. This wanders through email security tools, security information and event managers, understanding what risk our vendors and partners are giving to us, making sure our networks are segmented. Again, these are the more favorable results. This is the middle category. And the third category is aspirational controls. These are nice to haves. Certainly, we'd all benefit from them. And the insurance companies, by the way, you know that they have all the data, right? They have all the claims data, and they can source each loss back to its root cause. And sometimes it's identifiable, sometimes it isn't. So these guys have all the data to make these kinds of lists. There's data loss prevention right there, tabletop exercises with the executives. Those are under aspirational controls. We'll focus mostly on page 1 today, which are the must-haves. So one of the things we do with our managed clients and in our security and assessments is to create a tie between all the solutions out there, which you can see here on this page, plenty of security solutions, with a tie between that and your organization's security comfort level. So for example, if you invest with Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity or whoever your favorite investment house is, I use Fidelity. Sometimes I go to the Fidelity office in Towson, maybe every 3 years, see how they're doing. Nice people, they're very professional, very well trained. And they're also working at about half speed because security for them is turned up all the way, 10 out of 10. Now, you would do the same thing if you were protecting $7 trillion of other people's money, which is what Fidelity manages, but we're not. So we all have different security comfort levels. So there's a healthy discussion between this page and what your organization's security comfort level is. And that ties into what risks you're assuming, what risks you're mitigating, and what risks you're insuring for. By the way, the areas in yellow, the basic security steps, are in scope for our managed services clients. So about half of them are in scope, if not more. That's assuming you have Microsoft's Business Premium licensing or better. The clipboard ties in this chart with Judy's 7 must-haves. I wanted to see whether this chart, which I created years ago, has any integrity, but it overlaps seriously, it overlaps continuously, heavily with the must-haves from Judy's list, from the underwriters. So that gave me some feeling that there's some credibility in this security comfort level chart. So this is healthy discussions between our staff and yours. And of course, there's always something in research down below here, always something that we spend time on in order to advance our best practices. Now, there are different versions of this security comfort level that we can discuss with you. One is for those that are more budget conscious, otherwise known as you don't have serious security budgets, maybe this year, maybe ever, because that's not what your organization prioritizes. It turns out that much of the security comfort level chart is under $1 per user per month. Kind of fantastic. Now, there are some assumptions here. Clearly, if you have SAN snapshots, you have to have a SAN. This does assume that you have Office 365 Business Premium or better licensing, but most people have that. So it is pretty impressive how far we can go where individual steps are under $1 per user per month. Now, of course, you'll get a copy of these charts later on this afternoon. There's a third chart with the same content that shows what's in scope for our managed IT clients. So all the blue areas are in scope for our managed clients, again, assuming that you've got Business Premium or better Microsoft licensing. So this is important to me because I want to make sure our managed services offering and the security comfort level solutions, there's a healthy overlap, and you can see that right in front of you. Now, some of you have come here to understand what it takes to have a security comfort level with people computing at home. There's a whole different set of priorities. Remember, this is the same chart that you saw in the last 3 slides, but the red areas are the ones to focus on for those that are computing from home. So hopefully that's helpful for those of you who have big computing at home staffs and understanding what to prioritize. So leaving that topic, we're going to head into the must-haves. Number 1 in Judy's list is incident response plan. This is really important because when we help our customers, usually our non-managed customers, recover from security incidents, there is a series of steps. If you don't have those steps written down, it's going to take you longer and you won't be able to recover as fast or as completely. So one of the things that I work on with our clients is to understand the breadcrumbs that are left when the hackers are removed from our email boxes. Those breadcrumbs help us understand the path of the fraud. Again, this is just one of the 16 steps we use to help eradicate trouble when hackers take over an email box, for example. So these are important conversations, and I handle the management side of it, and of course my team handles the technical side of it, making sure that that the bad guys are separated from our email accounts. So that's part of incident response. That's one area. Another area is planning for the first 24 hours after a ransomware incident or other incident. That first 24 hours um, can be a way of getting more quickly recovered. In any case, the first 24 hours, you're really on your own because the insurance company is not yet in your face and they're not in your systems. After 24 or 36 hours, we find the insurance companies take over. Now, you may not like that because certain decisions they make might protect their interests rather than yours or your customers, but that's the fact of insurance life. So you're in control for the first day, day and a half, which is why we limit this incident response plan to the first 24 hours to get a quick start. But the insurance companies take over at that point, and of course they help you recover, often with our help here in Baltimore, if it's a Baltimore client. But they're really in control of the process at that point. Number two is MFA. I think all of you are familiar with it at this point. There's lots of ways to lose control of your email boxes. For example, in this case, a manager's account was hacked. They watched her emails for financial transactions. They found the order approval process. They created a fake invoice from a legitimate company, which just happened to be their last IT provider, and filled out the required forms, forwarded them to accounting, and the accounting followed the process and paid 5 figures. So we have seen this over and over again. I'll show you a chart of these business email compromises in a moment. But this is standard type of fraudulent activity that could be prevented with an MFA implementation. I sense all of you have probably got your MFA implementation well underway or completed, but I want to show you one more graph from the Verizon data breach report, this year's report, that'll give you some ammunition if you need more money or more time or more focus from your organization. MFA interrupt is a fancy way of saying any weakness in your MFA implementation, if you're still using SMS, if you're still using passcodes and other weak forms of MFA, accounts for 22% of 365 bypasses, according to the Verizon report based on a experience of 2,000 incidents. So MFA is there at 22%, and that's any weakness that you've placed in your MFA infrastructure, like using SMS. So we're still seeing that. Moving on to number three, EDR. EDR is required in nearly all the applications, the cyber insurance applications that we've seen. There are some exceptions, but they're pretty rare, or maybe our customer hasn't read them closely enough. EDR is advanced endpoint protection. We happen to use the Semantic product, that's SCSC, but there's lots of other ones out there. But just make sure that your product is categorized as EDR if that is the commitment you've made to your insurance company. The good news is EDR doesn't have to be, and these types of advanced antivirus protections don't have to be expensive. Moving on to number four, external vulnerability scans. Most of you should be doing external vulnerability scans at this point, and I did mention that your insurance company probably did one. Whether they gave you the results or not, I'm not sure, as part of the application process. Our managed clients receive external vulnerability scans in scope several times a year at least. And with the first one, of course, with any new client, all kinds of eyes open. But I thought I'd show you some work that was really interesting to me. Now, this work is a little dated. This is the COVID area work, March 2020. However, BitSight Technologies, that's one of the big vendors of external vulnerability scans used by insurance companies. So they ran a lot of these. They probably run thousands a day because there's applications being filed every day. The result showed malware on home networks used by employees working remotely versus the same employers working in the office. So they're looking at malware on home networks in the same companies by employees working at home versus not working at home. In nearly every case, the specific malware was far more prevalent on the home network. That's pretty scary, especially when you see the numbers. For example, TrickBot, the infection often preceding ransomware, was on home networks at roughly 4x the rate of the corresponding corporate network. So that was true in nearly all the malware identified, way more. And there's lots of reasons for this, including BYOD, potentially use of corporate systems, at home for gaming or other personal reasons. We see a lot of elements of this, so we've got to be careful. Backups. So immutable backups is something you should be familiar with this at this point. Immutable meaning your data is unchangeable during the immutability retention period, can't be deleted, and is unchangeable. That's a significant component of ransomware recovery, especially SAN snapshots. So if you do nothing with today's presentation, nothing else with today's presentation, make sure your SAN snapshots are running properly. That's how we help our clients recover. Now, we haven't had a managed client had a ransomware incident in a long time, but I'm talking about our non-managed clients. So make sure your SAN snapshots are in place, running properly, and that is a significant component of our quick ransomware recovery efforts. Callback verification is number 6 on the must-haves. This is the fund transfer requests that you've got to be independently verifying. So the staff has to be good at independently verifying various requests, including changes in bank account numbers and fund transfer requests. This is all part of the social engineering area. Some cyber insurance policies require funds transfer policy for the cyber crime clause to apply. So their clause doesn't even apply unless you have a funds transfer policy. In fact, 4 out of 5 insurers that I looked at, that I surveyed, had callback verification requirements of some type. Some insurance won't even write the policy without a funds transfer policy. Others require it to pay the claim. So some require regular employee training on funds transfer policy. This is the last line of defense before the money goes out the door. Now, you can get a sample funds transfer policy if you don't have one already. Just jot it down on today's evaluation. Judy found one at a law firm that one of the insurance companies was using that gave us permission to distribute it. Number 7, the last one before we get into the bonus round, social engineering. So based on the FBI IC3 center, which is the center that you call when you lose control of your systems, generally your mailboxes, they call them BECs, that's business email compromises. They average $50,000 each. Now you could say, well, $50,000 is the price of a company car or a big forklift or a van or whatever, it's not too much. It turns out that there is an important distinction here. And this distinction is that these losses are under the social engineering sublimit of your cyber insurance policy. So let me say that again. These losses that average 50 grand each, or median 50 grand each, are part of a sublimit of your big policy. That sublimit is generally 100K. Sometimes you can get 250, depending on the size of your organization and how hard you beg for it. We have 250, for example. But many people, most people, especially in smaller institutions, have 100K sublimit for social engineering claims, which means if you get more than 2 claims a year, you're uninsured. So that's why I included this data. This data is only showing through 2023, but 2024 data was 50K also. For some reason, it didn't hit the graph. Now, we all know that phish-prone percentages can be difficult. These are the percentages of people willing to click a phishing email in a phishing test. This would be for a phishing email test like from KnowBe4, which is our standard for phishing campaigns. And we sell it also in case you don't have one or you'd like to renew with us. So most organizations start at 20, 21, 22, 23% before the phish-prone and the phishing campaigns are starting. Once the campaigns start, the problem goes into the noise and stays there. It's pretty impressive for a piece of software that costs $2 or $3 a month per person or whatever it is. In fact, there's some periods here. I think there's about 18 weeks right here. This is a sample of data that we can attest with. This is actual data for an organization that we know about. Can you still hear me? Oh, yes, I think so. Okay, so this is a data set that we can attest to. We don't believe in any of our manufacturers' data, so we thought we would create our own. And you can see that plenty of reasons why this number bops up. New hires is a particular one. Those of you who are in higher turnover organizations, that's not an easy game to play. But using this phishing campaigns under certain circumstances, that means it has to be set up for best practices. Know before and similar packages are very interesting to me because if you don't set them up right, they actually don't do very much. It's kind of interesting. But this is just an example of an organization that was set up properly with best practices, and the problem starting at 20 some odd percent went into the noise pretty fast. Pops up once in a while as new hires are put into the system. This is an internal chart of business email compromises. You heard me talk about this a moment ago. BECs is where the hackers take control of your email box. These are email situations where they actually got in. There's plenty of false positives too. So for example, the way to read this graph is during the fourth quarter of 2021, there were 10 email compromises where the bad guys got into the 365 accounts. Now, this is across many thousands. We manage many thousands of email boxes. But we've been able, along with our clients buying better licensing and using better phishing practices, that we've been able to bring this number down wildly. And we're down to 2 a quarter, trying to get that down. There were 8 months here at 0. You may have your own chart, and we'd be happy to benchmark with you on business email compromises. Now, you may have brought this number down as we have for our managed clients, but there is sort of a limit. Verizon says there's about 1.5% of people who can be fooled anytime. So that's unfortunate, but we're not too worried about that because not all of our clients are down to 1.5%. You can check your own numbers at KnowBefore's portal or otherwise. Patch management is next, and end-of-life software removal. So this is important because some of the policy creators, that's Chubb, have created a provision where the claim, if you have a claim, is reduced by half if you didn't patch at 45 days or sooner. So this is the exact policy provisions. I didn't paraphrase them. They labeled them nicely. They call them neglected software exploit endorsements. And they call it risk sharing, grace periods. They have some nice names for this. But the bottom line is your claim drops by half at 45 days if the patch that created the problem was not put in place. It drops by 3/4 if you're 90 days behind. And it drops further at 180 and 365. So we've got to be very careful here because patching dictates for some of the vendors the claim payments. Now, all of you have probably gotten in the middle of these patching situations. We were in the middle of one in a non-managed client. Ransomware occurred in the healthcare sector, resulting in 200 plus computers being replaced. You know what goes wrong with patching. Patching can be done incompletely because the patching configuration wasn't done properly. Some of it might have been manual, some of it might have been automated. The gaps that open up between them are not pretty. Some PCs were not requesting the needed patches, probably because their hard disks were full or their Windows update was frozen or hosed in some way. Some of the vendors in this facility were not patching. Some of them had old, less visible PCs hidden in closets, doing displays, time clocks, the usual stuff. Some operating systems were frozen because of software incompatibilities. They couldn't be upgraded. There's just lots of reasons. In this case, the source was traced to the parent institution, and then they stopped talking about it. But there were over 200 computers replaced as part of this effort. All of you know why patching is so complicated. We decided to write it down one day. Turns out there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ways to patch. And that's just one of the quick snapshots I can show you as to why patching is so complicated and so difficult to do well. But we also know that the CVEs, that's the vulnerabilities, and the KEVs, that's the exploits of those vulnerabilities, the known exploited vulnerabilities, those are 5 days apart. So you and I have 5 days between the exploit publishing date and the date of the first of the exploits of that common vulnerability. We have 5 days, but there is a portion of this where it's 0 days, and that portion is edge devices. So when the hackers are taking advantage of your edge device vulnerabilities, they're giving you 0 days between the vulnerability publishing and the exploit of that vulnerability. So 5 days is still pretty fast, but 0 days is very difficult to deal with. The good news is the industry is responding. Both you and I are patching edge devices faster and faster. In this case, the for the whole for all vulnerabilities, the median is 30 days, 38 days to fully remediate a vulnerability. For edge devices, it's 32. So people are at least respecting the fact that edge devices have to be prioritized. Now, we know that patching is a lost art because we measure our new managed services clients inbound, and the number is rarely greater than 30% patched. This is the Microsoft patch score. Now, we can take it to the mid 90s in a couple weeks of really boring work, but important work. So we know that patching is a lost art. It is something that just is not done well at least among the survey of our incoming clients. Don't forget your backup tracking too. We know that as IT people, we know that we can make mistakes, but loss of backups is not one of them. That's why we track backups every day. While you and I are waking up in the morning, my staff is checking our managed clients for the backups. They check every job every day for success, failure, errors, whatever. So that's very important part of our work in recovering and keeping claims at a minimum. Now, who's going to do all this work? There's plenty of work we talked about today. Gartner, which is, is the grandfather of the research in the IT industry, has what's called the run, grow, and transform model. This model suggests to us, and Gartner suggests to us, that not all IT tasks are created equal, and that we should put these tasks on this chart. This chart shows business knowledge. That's how intimate with your organization do I need to perform the task, and how much competitive advantage does the task give me? So let's put some examples on the screen. Let's pretend you are creating a new dashboard system for your accounting software or your warehousing or whatever you're doing. That system requires a lot of knowledge of your environment and gives you a lot of competitive advantage if done properly. Let's say you're putting new accounting software in, same kind of situation. A lot of competitive advantage, but requires a lot of business knowledge to put it in. Yet there are other areas like doing backups or managing your 365 portal or managing your IT operations, including help desk. Those might be in this area where we don't need intense, intimate knowledge of your environment, and it doesn't give you wild amounts of competitive advantage. It certainly shouldn't. Everyone should be doing backups. But do you see where different tasks are in different portions of this chart? Then Gartner overlays the run, grow, and transform model. The run area is here in the bottom left. The transform area is here in the upper right. Remember, our ERP system, our dashboard is up here. Managing 365 portal, doing backups is down here. The run activities, Gartner says, should be outsourced. The transform activities, you own them, they're yours. And the grow activities are in between, you partner for those. The unfortunate part is that much of the money and staffing is tied up in the run activities. It's about 65%. What's also unfortunate is it doesn't go down. You would think that we would get more efficient year over year in run activities. The data doesn't support that. The other thing that makes our jobs and your jobs even harder than normal is that management is very interested in asking all day long about transform activities. What's the status of that dashboard or that migration or that upgrade? But all the money and the staff are tied up over here, at least at a 65% level for run activities. That dichotomy, that spread, makes our jobs that much harder. But in this case, Gartner is advocating for outsourcing run activities. So that gives you a picture for who should do this work. Let's summarize today. What do? We educate management on risks assumed versus insured. We got to make sure that all the risks are in one of three buckets: assumed by the organization, and they're knowledgeable that it's been assumed. They're not doing it blindly. Mitigated by some work that you and I do together or separately, or insured for. We need to get an early start on renewal. So any of you who have renewals in the first quarter of next year should already be starting on them. The insurance companies love to wait for the last minute, but that's not in our interests, especially if you have to make certain improvements, like putting EDR level antivirus software in. One of the insurance companies we were working with, or one of our clients is working with, said, you have a deadline. You've got to put EDR in place, otherwise we're not writing you or we're going to requote you or whatever. Well, that's not easy for a 900 person organization. Now we went there and we did it and it was done, but you don't want to wait to the last minute. So ask for the attestation and the security questionnaires ahead of time. Remind them that you want them a quarter ahead or 2 months ahead or something like that. Reach out for insurance or IT assistance. If you want to talk to Judy or at Schoenfeld, you're welcome to, or IT assistance, of course, is what we do, if your internal resources are stretched. And manage to the insurance security requirements at a minimum. Make sure that whatever you're committed to stays in place through the year, whether it be MFA, whether it be backups, or whatever. So that's my presentation today. I've asked Michelle Robinson, who leads our Learning Center, to create some promotion around system source security training. So here are some security courses out of the 7,000 courses we deliver a year. And of course, we do sell KnowBe4 and consult on it in case you need it reset up. We have reset up many KnowBe4s to turn it from just any old piece of software into something that creates the results that you saw in today's presentation. So Michelle has put some discounted prices. You just have to respond by 12/17, and you'll receive a copy of this later today. But that's today's presentation. We invite you to complete the survey at the end of the presentation. One will pop up later on today, and we'll use your feedback to help us improve. But I thought we'd go right to questions, and you're welcome to put questions in the chat box or the question box for that matter. I've got both up on the screen. Maybe we'll start with, while you're preparing your questions, if there's some experience you have that might have said something today works or doesn't work, don't hesitate to put that in the box also, so we can learn from each other. But I've taken the questions that you wrote down during the registration process. I'll be using first names only just to protect the confidentiality today. Javier, welcome. How insurance companies rate your exposure. You did see a piece of that today in 3 pieces. I'll move the slides back to it. And here are the 3 pieces right here. Let me take my annotation off. Piece 1 is the application underwriting process. We talked about starting that early, making sure we read every word, and especially if we think we've got an unusual circumstance where we have to talk to the underwriters. They are available in case you need to talk to them. Number 2 is the claims loss data. And we did talk about the fact that renewals after a claim is not an easy game. And that's why relying on insurance only is going to be a tough road for organizations long term. And number 3 is the external vulnerability scan. They want to know what they see from the outside, what the hackers can see from the outside, and that's the role of the external scan. So hopefully that was helpful, Javier. If you have thoughts, don't hesitate to put them in the box. Paul, welcome today. Gain a better understanding of coverage options in a healthcare EDI transaction processing environment. Your question is a bit of a narrow one, but important. I probably didn't do justice in today's more generic presentation. We'd have to talk about that offline, and I'd be happy to. Joe, welcome. Managed cyber insurance. Hopefully you saw some hints here today. Nicholas, welcome. Nick, how to be successful with cyber insurance claims. So you saw some of that today, but making sure that whatever attestation, whatever forms, whatever provisions of the policy that were required stay in place does help you be successful with cyber insurance claims. Making sure that you're prepared with SAN snapshots also keeps the claims down in size. Much of these claims have to do with lost business, which means anytime you see a multi-week down situation, you know that you're going to see a multi-million-dollar claim at most of our client sizes. Libby, welcome. To know what exactly cyber insurance is and how much coverage should a company carry. So I did talk about that today, and let's go back to that slide and show you. This is the slide that has the median of 115K down from 150, but you can see that in terms of the standard deviations, there are claims here on the high side with a median of 3.6 million. So it is a broad range. Verizon last year actually created a different graph that they didn't update this year that had the ransomware payments as a percentage of organizational revenue. If you need that graph for any reason, it's a year old. I'd be happy to provide that to you. Just put that on your evaluation or email me if that's helpful. To get to a multi-million-dollar claim is not hard, at least among the experience of our clients, non-managed clients. George, welcome today. Government options for cyber insurance. I probably am not an expert on government options and how government insures or self-insures. So I apologize for that, but some of the same principles should be in place, making sure that all of your security risks are in the category where the government has decided to assume them, to mitigate them, or to insure for them, or self-insure for that matter. I'll take other questions. I'll be quiet for 15 seconds so you have a moment to type in, starting now. If there are no more questions or experience to be shared, I appreciate your time very much. And some people say the greatest gift between business people is ending meetings early. So I'm going to yield the 13 minutes back to you. And we appreciate your time very much. Your comments very welcome as always. Thank you again.